like this.
I gotta admit, it's good.
Yes, it is very good. Very good.
I know you're a big fan.
I'm a huge fan. Yeah, we're going to talk about that band here in just a minute.
Okay.
But welcome back, Geoholics, to episode 269.
269.
Yes, indeed. 269.
Believe it or not. Yeah, just
Crazy
cooking right along.
Things have happened. Man, there's a lot going on right now. Some news and happenings. We have opened up our 2026 Friends of the Program opportunities.
That's correct.
For those you that don't know, that is being a sponsor of the show.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 different levels, conveniently named CST, LSIT, and PLS.
Mm-hmm.
We've added a Surveyor General.
We have an exclusive one only Surveyor General.
Yes, and talk about VIPs.
Yeah, I mean it's the top.
It is the top. And to find out more about any of those opportunities, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com. All I can say is the return on investment is,
I mean, we like to say it's incalculable.
That's a big word, but I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
You cannot calculate it.
You can't even calculate it. It's that good.
It's a big number.
It is a big number. But yeah, we're going to be releasing a lot more information on our social media outlets as far as that goes.
We will.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? We are quiet as far as travel goes from now until Geo Week.
That's
in
correct.
February.
Yeah.
So nice break and
get
home for a couple months.
Spend some time with the family.
Yep. Do all the stuff we should have been doing for the last year.
Probably.
Yep. Exactly. Some of the events coming up include, like I mentioned, Geo Week in Denver. We'll be at that one. What comes after that? I think ASPRS, Gulf South,
Western region.
Be there. Topodot, 12D Tech Forum in Brisbane.
Yes.
In July.
That's correct.
And then Hexagon Live.
Be
there. Intergeo in Munich. Trimble Dimensions in Vegas. And I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. We got to figure this shit out, man.
Maybe.
We got to quit our full-time jobs, one of the two.
On the list.
On the list. There we go. All right. This episode, of course, as always, is powered by our good friends at MLID, making aerial and terrestrial surveys faster and easier than ever before. To learn more, go to MLID, that's EMLID.com. What's new, man? I know we're both crazy busy.
I always say not a lot, and then I say a lot. But yeah, just crazy busy at work trying to get everything. It seems like the development activity is heating up again, and
really?
It just seems like a lot of requests and a lot of activity.
Nice.
And we're getting into budget season and planning, and it's all a bunch. The year's done, and we're all planning for next year. So, what about you? What's new with you?
Well, we just wrapped up our fiscal year on October 31st.
Yes.
So the last month or so, 2 months, has just been crazy push, right? Got to hit your number, got to hit your sales number, blah, blah, blah. We checked all the boxes, hit our goals. So in theory, bonus season should be good this year.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Happy for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Weekly updates, as always, brought to you by our good friends at Topodot. Topodot Users Conference, we mentioned, is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. To join the community at Tuck 26 in Orlando. And that is going to be May 11th through the 15th.
Oh, it's later this year.
Make sure you register before New Year's Day for the early bird pricing for Tuck. And
nice.
To do that, simply go to topodot.com.
Just that easy.
That simple. Talk about that music that I am so fond of.
Yes. Believe it or not, that was the Tragically Hip. I'm not going to ask because I know they've been on before. That was a song called New Orleans is Sinking. The Tragically Hip, often referred to as The Hip, is a Canadian rock band formed in Kingston, Ontario in 1984. The band consists of lead vocalist Gord Downey, guitarist Rob Baker, guitarist Paul Langlois, bassist Gord Sinclair, and drummer Johnny Faye. Known for their energetic live performances and a unique blend of rock, alternative, and blues influences, the Tragically Hip became one of Canada's most beloved bands. They are.
Big fan, huge fan. One of my biggest regrets in life is not seeing them live. And Gord Downey, it was just, I think last week or the week before was the anniversary of his passing. So kind of a sad time, I mean, just an unbelievable band. If you guys haven't heard of them, haven't been introduced to them, check them out. Tragically Hip. Our song of the week is brought to you by Altair Central. saw those guys at Trimble Dimensions.
Good quality time with our friend Scott Spears.
Yep, your Trimble dealer for all things survey mapping and even marine gear. Check out allterracentral.com. It's my boss calling right now.
Oh, cool.
He'll have to wait.
Yeah, he knows. He knows the deal.
All right. Next up is our NLC prep trivia question. You're going to see I did this a little bit different tonight.
I see that.
It's not a survey question.
It is not. I think our maybe a little preview of our upcoming guest here.
Yep.
So I'll try not to butcher this too much.
It's a lot of words there.
Yeah, before she corrects me here. But all right, here we go. Which of the following defines stratigraphy in archaeology? Is it A, the scientific technique used to determine the exact numerical age of an artifact through radiometric analysis? Is it B, the study and interpretation of layered sediment or soil deposits to understand the chronological sequence of past human activity? Is it C, the process of recreating ancient tools and pottery using traditional methods to better understand past technologies? Or D, the method of mapping ancient trade routes through isotopic analysis of human remains?
I have an inkling.
I have no idea because I did not pay attention to what the words mean. I was just trying not to butcher the pronunciation.
You did great, by the way. You did great.
Yeah, that's a lot to throw at me.
Stratigraphy. It's like, what are the layers of the earth? They're called like stratas or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think we're starting to dive into something where we really don't know, and we should probably get our guest in here.
I probably should stop embarrassing myself, is what you're saying.
Yes, please.
Fair enough. So anyways,
but I do agree with you.
You guys listening, send us the answer to that question. And if you get it correct, our guest is not included. She cannot answer this.
No, that'd be unfair.
But if you email us the answer to that question and it's correct, we'll send you a $10 Amazon gift card.
We will.
Yep. Pass your surveying exams for the first time. Go to NLC Prep. Offer targeted practice and expert guidance designed for surveyors. I know a lot of people that have used this service and they have been successful on the very first time passing their exams. To find out more, go to nlcprep.com. All right.
Let's get on with this.
We're getting so good at that intro opening stuff.
Well, I'm just anxious to talk to our guest.
Fair enough.
I like it when it's a little outside of our typical topic, so I feel like I'm going to learn something.
Although in a case like this, we normally look more stupid than what we are.
Yeah, I'm just getting used to that.
That's okay. And when you hang out with me, it happens.
Yeah, I know. It's like infectious.
So our guest this week, as always, brought to you by David Evans and Associates. To find out more about the DEA difference, visit DEAINC.com. We've got Jenna Kent with us this evening, born in San Antonio, Texas. She attended Oregon State University, I believe. Is that one? Got that right?
Kind of 50-50 shot on that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I was like, I almost forgot myself. I'm like, is it Oregon or Oklahoma? I can't remember. And she forensic anthropology and bioarchaeology field school at the Irish Archaeological Field School in Wexford County, Ireland, which partnered with Trinity College Dublin. Can't wait to find out more about that. Hobbies include hiking, camping, and get this, prehistoric ceramic replication.
Oh, that's a new one.
Her job, she's an archaeologist at Jacob Engineering Group, performing archaeological surveys, construction monitoring, testing, data recovery, or documenting historic and prehistoric sites. Passion includes piecing together fragmented evidence like a puzzle to reconstruct past behaviors and cultural processes.
I got to admit, when I first read this, I thought it was piercing together, and then I was really confused, but thank you for clearing
hopefully
that
I
up.
got that correct.
Yeah.
Jenna, welcome to the Geoholics. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Have we had an archaeologist on the show before?
Well,
Tom. He's like
I don't even count him.
He's a dinosaur hunter.
Yeah, he is an action. I mean, he is, but he's on the extreme. He's an extremist.
He's an extremist. Yes, we should make an introduction to these two.
We should.
They probably have a lot to talk about. So, thanks for your time. Looking forward to this conversation, as producer Sean said earlier. Talk about, you lived from your bio, Texas, Mississippi, Utah, and Hawaii. You moved around a bunch because your husband's military service. How did that like geographic diversity influence your interests in archaeology?
Yeah, so I think living in different regions kind of helped me appreciate how place really shapes people. So, people adapt to their surroundings, their climate and landscape, and that's deeply rooted in how cultures are shaped, which is a big part of archaeology. So I think just kind of having those different experiences help show me how different different regions can be.
So, is this one of those stories where you turned like 4 years old and knew you wanted to be an archaeologist, or is it something that you kind of realized later in your life?
Good question.
Yeah, so I wish that I knew that I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was 4, because I feel like I would be so much more advanced, by now. I didn't really catch on.
Years.
Yeah, I would save a lot of time. I didn't really know archaeology was a career path, honestly, until much later. And I always had a love of history, and I was working for the military. I was an operations manager, which I really enjoyed doing that. I really loved working for and with the military. But it was actually my grandmother in Texas. We have this old family cemetery, and it was what used to be very rural Texas, San Antonio, now is like very much industrial. And this old cemetery where my grandmother's grandparents are buried, as well as other ancestors of ours, it was surrounded by buildings, and people were literally parking in between the headstones. So it was just, there was no fence, there was no protection of this thing at all. And my grandma didn't really know what to do. And I was like, I'd always been interested in, family history, and I did a lot of genealogy research and stuff just as a hobby on the side. And I was like, let me see what I can figure out. So that's really what started it, weirdly enough, is I took on this project out of granny guilt. And then it kind of, I realized, it was awesome. Like 2 years of working on this to write up this historic site dedication and do all of the research to back up why it's significant. And when I finished it, which I was just doing this on the side, meanwhile doing my own job. But after it was all done and wrapped up, I felt like there was like this big hole missing. I really enjoyed doing it. How do I do this every day? So I went back to school and completely changed gears and went a different direction. And at first, I wasn't still thinking archaeology at the time. I was like, history, something with history. So it wasn't until college that I realized, I think it was my first anthropology course, I was like, this is it. This is the path that I want to do. So it opened up the door for me. But it's not something that I even knew was a career choice growing up.
So you're going to be educating us a lot this evening.
I
don't think either one of us knows a whole heck of a lot about archaeology.
I mean, I've seen however many Indiana Jones movies, so that does make me an expert, and I'm sure Jenna's heard that every day of her professional career, but I hope so.
So, like, to become an archaeologist, or to be able to call yourself an archaeologist, is there like a license, a certification? I mean, are there some sort of credentials that go along with that?
Yeah, so the minimum requirement to start off, get your foot in the door in archaeology is a bachelor's degree. And from there, you need field school. So field school is a dig season, doing hands-on excavation, the things that you learn about it in school. But that's really the pivotal part of your career, is like actually getting to be in the field, handle artifacts, figure out how to, dig a square hole precisely, and all the measurements and recording, all the different stuff that goes with that, how to use a Trimble and a total station, all of those little things kind of bring all of your textbook education together. And from there, there's different schools of thought on it. I know when I was first starting this path for my career, I was told by every professor in the beginning, until I finally had one in the end that had some experience working in cultural resources management, that you're never going to get a job in archaeology right out with a bachelor's degree, and that you're going to have to, what they call shovel bumming, which is like bouncing from project to project, getting different, entry level experience of just kind of, doing the grunt work and build up from that, and then build up from that. And meanwhile, go back to school and get your master's, and then, especially get your PhD, and then you can be an archaeologist. Yeah. But in the reality of that, that's not at all how my path went. And I think there's a big divide between academic archaeology, so academia, and, the people that are teaching the programs, and, they have a different understanding because their path was different. They went to school to teach a lot of times, or they ended up in that path. However, so that's what worked for them, but it's not really what works for everyone. So for me, like I said, I'd worked for the military, and I was much older than people that, in field school. I was, significantly older than everybody that was there. It was a completely different age group. And I think a lot of the people coming out, in their early 20s, maybe don't have a lot of job experience or just, I don't know, life experience at that point. And for me, when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I was like, you know what? I have skills, as a researcher. I've been, doing that for a long time. I really was just anxious to be able to get some hands-on experience even before field school. So it's like, hey, I'm going to field school. I have this date. And I kind of just, sit my contact information out there, and I got hired immediately. And so my path has been very different, because then I was hired on with a firm. And, before I got to all of those other steps that I thought I needed to finish and complete to even start in archaeology, I was already doing those things. So it's really different for everyone. But I think I would encourage people to, get yourself out there. There's all sorts of different volunteer opportunities. There's not, a big iron gate that prevents people wanting to take this path from being able to get hands-on experience. It's not as daunting as I think it can seem in college.
Sure. And you completed your field school in Ireland.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about that experience and maybe share a really cool story.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. So Ireland was my top choice, because when I was looking at different field school opportunities, I was very interested in bioarchaeology or forensic anthropology. So the study of human remains related to archaeology. And that can be really difficult in the United States to get hands-on experience with that, because that one, there really very much is an iron wall. You have to be qualified to be able to handle human remains. There's a lot more protections, which rightly so. There's a lot more protections in the United States because of our history with how human remains have been handled in the past. So to get the experience that I, thought that I would really need to be able to kind of get my foot in that door, there's a lot more bioarchaeology programs available abroad. And so I started looking at that path. Ireland had always been a dream, and, excavating in Ireland, I was like, yes, absolutely. So I applied, I got in, and it was an amazing experience. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. So it almost all did not work out, because I'd already been delayed from being able to do field school because of COVID. And so I was kind of like in this in between, because I couldn't really work yet until I had field school, but all field schools had been canceled. So I was in this weird spot, and I was so scared. I had everything lined up. I was scared it was going to get canceled, but it worked out really great, because one, the students that we were able to get in, but there weren't really any tourists in Ireland at that time. So it was kind of nice. I felt like I was on like some sort of private vacation of Ireland. And we got to stay at a really cool, usually they do like, a student is hosted by a family, a local family. Yeah. And that wasn't really an option during COVID. So they found us this amazing estate, this manor house, and we got to stay on the estate because we were all, digging with each other so we could interact with each other. So, if one of us had COVID, we would all have COVID, and we could quarantine together. Sure. So we got to stay at this beautiful estate with a castle on the grounds, and it was like right down the street from our dig site. And yeah, it was really cool. And I mean, Ireland's, it was absolutely beautiful, but it's also, in hindsight, it was so different. Everything about excavating in Ireland was honestly so different from anything that I do in Arizona.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, it's very, very different history, right? But also just, I mean, from the most basic sense, the depth in time, figuratively and
okay, yeah,
and realistically and literally, it's a deep trench in Ireland. We were digging, 2 meters down into the ground to go back and look at a 2,000-year time span. Wow. Whereas in Arizona, we might hit 20 centimeters, and we're looking at that same amount of time that's passed because the deposition is so different. So you don't have to dig down very far to go really far back in time in Arizona. Whereas in Ireland, we had ladders going down to get to what we needed to look at.
Wow. So what was the dig site in Ireland? What were you extracting there?
So we got to do an excavation, and the first excavation, since then they've continued several seasons since then, but we were the first group that got to excavate St. Aidan's monastic site So it is a 7th century monastery with a 12th century cathedral, Augustinian cathedral, placed on the site as well. So we had, a lot of occupation, a lot of different things happening. But yeah, that one was really neat. We were able to uncover remains of the cloister. So the part of the monastery that would be like a kind of like a covered walkway where the monks would go in between the chapel. And there was no evidence. So you can see there's a lot of, the walls are still intact on most of this, but then there's the part we were looking for was the older church that it was built on top of. So we wanted to find the remains of the cloister to prove that that's what was here before they built the church that you can see now.
Wow.
So that was pretty fun.
Oh, I have a couple questions, but I got to go back a second. And maybe it's too in depth and you can't answer it in a podcast, but why is that depth? Why is there a difference in depth and time between Arizona and Ireland? Like, why is it in the first foot you get 2,000 years and in Ireland it's 2 meters?
No, that's a good question, and it is an involved question. But the short answer, I can give you a short answer.
Yeah, like you're talking to a 4-year-old.
Right. Okay. So the short answer is, so I talked about deposition. So you think about the processes that create soil in the most basic sense are, you think about a tree falling down and the leaves, and then the tree falls down, and that over time gets ground up and absorbed into the soil that's there and turned over. And here in Arizona, we don't really have, an overstory much to speak of in most parts of Arizona. You have some, creosote, some mesquite, some small things, but most of it is pretty open desert land. And so you're not getting that same, deposition to come down, but you're also not getting all of, like, Ireland is known for the amount of rain they get. I saw a lot of it when I was out there, but so all of that rain washing things through, moving things from other places,
sediment,
there's movement,
build up, and okay, I got you. Oh,
right.
She may be describing stratigraphy. I'm not sure.
I don't want to give it away for the listeners, but
I tried to avoid using the word stratigraphy there. It was kind of hard.
And real quick, if you could, I don't think I caught what's the real difference between archaeology and bioarchaeology?
So bioarchaeology it's still under the umbrella of archaeology, but it's specifically the study of human remains. So it's looking at bones and associated materials. Like
DNA? Does it go that far? Like, are you
it can, but we're usually not. That is something that is done, but typically it's testing for DNA is destructive in its nature.
Okay.
So, and usually we try not to be destructive in, when we're dealing in a respectful way with human remains. So we have to use other clues that we rely a lot on context of what's found with remains. What else is there that can provide us a time range or, an indicator of who this person was or why they're here, rather than destroying a part of the remains that we recover in order to answer a question about ancestry alone.
Sure.
Okay, I got one more, and then I'll turn it back to you.
No, totally. Please.
You were mentioning that you were looking specifically for what did you call it? The area where the monks were. What's that called?
Cloister.
Cloister.
Yeah, the cloister.
The cloister.
So when you're doing this, and I've always wondered this, like, do you have any idea what you're finding while it's happening, or do you have to collect all these artifacts and then piece it all together and then do all your magic and then you piece the story together and then you can say, or is it like, oh, here, this, and then you immediately get to that point? Like, do you know what you're looking at when you see it?
That's a good question. And that depends on the specific project. So like for the Ferns excavation in Ireland, they had already completed GPR, so ground penetrating radar studies. They already had a good idea of where the cloister could be located or should be located based on what they were able to see in GPR scans, but also from the blueprint and footprint of existing structures of that same age. So they were typically built with the same basic floor plan. So they knew basically where to look, and then they scanned the ground and were like, okay, we think this could be it, but there's also it's in a farm field, so it's been plowed, and there were all sorts of rocks moved and replaced, and a lot of these sites, these old sites that you see, primarily overseas, but really everywhere. You just see a lot more overseas that are much older, but they're living quarries. So people are taking a church is burnt down, and 100 years later, somebody's building a new church. Are they going to quarry new stone, or are they just going to take it from that pile of rubble where that other structure used to be that's no longer there?
Yeah.
So they're taking pieces from that. It's already ready to go. It's already part of a building. So there's a lot of things moving. So the scans aren't, it's not as easy as like an X-ray looking for a broken bone. It's more of, trying to use all of the clues. It's just one of the tools that we use.
You want to hear a really funny story?
Yeah.
So I think I was probably like 6 or 7.
Okay.
And I remember like being outside, of course, because that's where you spent your time as a 6 and 7-year-old kid. And I remember finding like some bird bones, right? And I had this brilliant idea. I'm like, I'm going to dig a hole like 2 feet deep. I'm going to put these bird bones in there in a matchbox car and a baseball and fill it back up. And someday somebody's going to find this and think they came across something amazing. Is that like an archaeological story of sorts?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Well,
no.
I could probably go back to that exact same spot. What's that?
It makes me think of one.
There we go.
And actually in Ireland. Yes. So this didn't happen when we were out here, but I love this story because it's really a good example of why you should, take a step back and really think about the problem and the evidence that you're finding. What does it really mean? So at the same site we were digging, someone in years past had uncovered a row of human skulls. And so they're like, what is happening here? So people are making all these weird assumptions, like, let's see what else is going on here. So some archaeologists came in, they started an excavation. So then they uncover more, the row continues, and they're all, they're looking at how is it oriented? Is it east, west, is it north, south? What does this mean? And then they come to a collection of long bones. So then you have all these femurs that are grouped together. And then you end up, you have all of these different parts. And so they're trying to figure out, people are making all sorts of crazy speculation, like it's some sort of ritual practice and that it was used for this and they're oriented this way. And then from the local population, when they started this information started getting out, come to find out, a farmer was kind of what I was talking about, the live querying, right? Or quarrying. They were looking for some stones to build something, and they came across some human remains. And in their mess of when they dug all of this up, he wasn't sure which skull went with which person. And so he felt that the best option was then to neatly sort them in by body part type. So he sorted the bones and then placed them back like that. And so, so then years later, people uncovered this and they're jumping to major, they think they make this major discovery and it has all the significance, but really it was just somebody with OCD.
Yeah, it's like an OCD farmer that couldn't handle it not being right. So he had to organize it differently.
That would be me.
Yeah, right.
So funny. So you mentioned, prehistoric ceramic replication. What exactly?
Yeah, can't say I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is so basically it's just taking wild clay using prehistoric methods to replicate the pottery that was made in the Southwest over the past, several centuries. So using natural clay that I find with different temper sources, different ratios, firing them in just a pit fire. So not like a kiln, anything high temp, not using anything modern in that process. That's basically it. So making things from dirt.
I like it. So like what would be a typical project for you? Like being an archaeologist here in Arizona, what would be a typical project? What would that look like for you when you get called into action? Yeah.
Most of what we do is, pre-construction compliance clearing, right? So we go out, usually a lot of what we do is survey. So it's a class 3 survey when we're actually like boots on the ground. Class 1 survey is the term that we use for like a literature review. So it's more of like a desktop survey. See what previous research has been done in this area. Has anybody looked at it? If nobody's looked at it within the last 10 years, or if nobody's ever looked at this, specific area within the project limits, then we go out and we do, we run transects, we do a survey of the entire thing, and we're looking, what is on the surface that is an indicator of possible site or human occupation. And that includes prehistoric and historic, so anything 50 years or older. So that's on the survey level.
Yeah, our developer's like, uh-oh, here comes the archaeologist.
Please don't find anything.
Yeah.
Please don't find anything.
Exactly. Please don't find anything.
anything.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And so I mean, after the survey, then we write all that information up, and then it also helps provide. So sometimes usually we come in at ideally at like a 60% plus phase in a project where they have a pretty good idea of where something is going, but there's still enough room if they need to change something, so we can come in to figure out what the mitigation strategy is going to be. So if maybe we can move the alignment slightly, if there's a way to do that and we can avoid it, that's ideal. If there's any sort of way to avoid a site, that's the best route. If it can't be avoided, then we get into a higher level mitigation strategy. So that would be data recovery. So that's when we go in and we excavate a site, and we basically record everything down to minute levels about what's going on here. We do a lot of testing and sampling so that we have all of that information to clear it for construction.
You got any really cool stories? Like I think of the story like where they're building a high rise and they start digging, for whatever, and all of a sudden they find something, right? Like, what do we do? Like, that's another example of like where you might get involved in a project, right?
Yeah, we do have a lot of those. So those are most often it's inadvertent discoveries are human remains. When human remains are found, it triggers all sorts of different laws, and that would require an archaeologist to come out. We also do a lot of monitoring. So if somebody's doing any sort of construction or ground disturbing activity in a known site boundary, then it requires an archaeologist to be there just to watch, so that they don't have to stop everything and wait for somebody to come, and that could take some time. So usually if it's in a site, then they can have somebody there on site to be like, nope, that's just a rock, or or hey, this is something significant, let's take a look. So there's a lot of that happens as well.
The one story that I know, and this is public, so I can say it. I'm pretty sure it's public. During the we just completed the light rail expansion here in Phoenix, and that project found during the 4 or 5 years, they had like thousands of different artifacts that were discovered.
Wow.
During that whole process, because they had to redo some bunch of utilities, and that's a really old part of Phoenix, obviously, right down Central Avenue, right along the Salt River, and that's one of the things. And Jenna probably can't tell us whether or not, but somebody like her or that their company was in, like there all the time just because it's just so much old stuff, you just don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When they said that, it's like thousands of those things. Like, that is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you mentioned to bring this to a land surveying connection. You mentioned using the Trimble total stations and stuff like that, and I'm assuming that maybe you guys use scanners and stuff to document things, and I'm sure GIS plays a part in what you do as well. Talk about how those different technologies or professions kind of come together when it comes to being an archaeologist.
Yeah, so I think GIS is something that really opened up a lot of doors for me personally, just because I think it's still really new when it comes to archaeology. It's not something that, a lot of people that have been doing this for many years, they're used to the ways that they do things, and so maybe not as willing to kind of adopt and new strategies and adapt to the change in technology. So I think coming in with a GIS background really helped me, because they work really well together. A lot of people, a lot of archaeologists that I know and that I've worked with, they don't understand GIS, and they have to work with people who do GIS. So they speak different languages essentially. So they don't know, the archaeologist doesn't really know how to ask for what they need or to explain what it is that they need. They're just like, oh, I need this map, and the GIS person doesn't really understand without them explaining it. What is the end goal here? What are we trying to show? What are you trying to get from this? And so it helps to be able to speak both of those languages, I think, because I can, one, make my own maps. I don't have to ask somebody else to do it. I can, use it for that, but that's just on a basic level. As far as, figures are really like the very basic level, I think, of GIS and archaeology. But for research, it's extremely valuable to be able to, do overlays. An example is, you talked about how do you know if you find something, are you expecting to find it? So a good example is like test trenching. We had a project in the last couple of years in the Holbrook area. And so part of, we did the survey, and then we tried to mitigate, but this particular area couldn't be moved. So we have to do data recovery. So we did the first phase of data recovery. And so we don't recover the entire site. So we don't dig the entire thing. I mean, that would take forever. So we do sample trenches to get a good idea of what the site is as a whole. But a lot of times those sample trenches are more or less arbitrarily placed based on landscape, based on, the context of what we're seeing on the ground, but what can be under the ground is very different oftentimes. So you're trying to place a trench in a place where you're going to get the most information on the site as a whole, but you may not always get it. So you may end up putting 10 trenches and 5 of them have cultural remains beyond the surface, which isn't really giving you a whole lot of information necessarily. But so GIS came in handy because we were looking at, where do we want to place these trenches? And I came across on the site card that was recorded. The site was only recorded in like the 60s, and then nobody else had really been back out there. It was before a road was going in. And just as like a footnote on the side, the archaeologists had written that there was a possible prehistoric structure foundation, and then they referenced this old as-built from the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh, but it had the number. So I was able to find the as-built, and it said it was like 15 to 20 feet southwest of stationing number, whatever it was. Yeah. So I was able to find the as-built and then overlay it on our site map and figure out exactly where they think they saw the foundation. So I put a point there, we put a trench there, and we found it. So we found evidence of that structure being there. And so that was our first phase. We got just the sidewall, like we just skimmed it. And so now we're going back in the next couple months to do phase 2. Yeah. And, we got some charcoal samples from there. There was some burning. So we'll get, a good date that we can get from that, from carbon date. So yeah, that was exciting. So that's a really good way that just being able to have that tool. I mean, it's an excellent tool to be able to say, hey, there was something here, just even something simple like a historic overlay or something like that can be really informative.
Yeah. It's funny, like when I think of archaeology and archaeologists, I think they're looking for things that are hundreds of years old, right? But not necessarily. She just talked about locating something from the 60s,
right?
Is still considered an archaeologist, job or whatever. Yeah.
Have you ever done like a site?
Glamorous, the historic stuff, but
yeah. And you have competitions like who can find the oldest thing.
Yeah, well,
why are you looking at me?
Well, you said it, not me.
Yeah, it's more of we have like friendly competitions of, sometimes everybody's in a different unit. If you're out on an excavation and we're doing 1 by 1 meter units or something, you're not really digging that with another person. So a lot of times it's like, oh man, I got bad luck on this one. It's just caliche, like 10 centimeters down and there's nothing here. And, now I got to map it, draw it, and photograph it, and sweep it, all of this stuff. And then meanwhile, somebody's over there digging through like this nice soft soil and they have all these cool artifacts and, find something cool.
Yeah, and they get like the paintbrush out and they're really getting in and
yeah.
That's and then you're over here on caliche with nothing,
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like, you spend a lot of time in the field, obviously, and then there's the office side of things. Like what's a typical day look like? Like, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, typical day. And I think that's what I like about at least my workload and my schedule is a typical day is never really typical. So I have a lot of variety in my job. So I kind of split my time between the field and the office or the lab. And usually it's like bursts of field work followed by, office work or lab work first. So, analyzing all the artifacts and stuff, washing them, getting them, under a microscope, oftentimes looking at them in the lab, and then office work, writing up the report, putting all of that information from the field, from the lab together, to tell the full story. But that's what's kind of nice about it though, is because I'm not spending, I think I would, as fun as I love being outside and I love archaeology. So I love being in the field, but it can be grueling, especially in summer in Arizona. It can be some long days and it wears on your body. So I think it would be really hard if I just did, a lot of people do a ton of field work in the beginning of their career and they don't really have the opportunity to do the other side of like writing up the reports. And that's the the biggest part of what we do. There's a lot of writing. There's a lot. It's not as glamorous as finding crystal skulls and caves and traveling to new places. There's a lot of reading and a lot of writing. A lot of just dry writing too. Just talking about exploring the same contexts and histories that you've written about over and over and over. There's a lot of repetition in that, but I think it's nice to have it broken up with exciting times in the field.
Yeah.
So I see a note here about the Bandelier National Monument.
Yes,
and it says is surveying 15 miles of wilderness that hasn't been studied before. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Bandelier National Monument's in New Mexico, and if you haven't been there, it's beautiful. It is. I'm not sure if it's the only one. If it's not the only one, then it's definitely one of only a few. But it's an archaeological national monument, and so it is thousands of acres of wilderness that is protected as a heritage site. And there's so much prehistoric activity that happened in that area that it's incredible. I mean, you can't really, on survey, you can't walk more than 10 meters without finding something, just on the surface.
So
and
cool.
and yeah, some really cool stuff, all sorts of beautiful pottery and some, a lot of different lithics or stone tools, projectile points, and just amazing stuff. And structures, foundation structures. You have all the cliff dwellings. So you probably at least seen pictures. If you haven't heard of Bandelier, you've probably at least seen pictures. There's all sorts of different iconic screensavers of the different cliff dwellings that are just carved out into the side, of the mountains there. And it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking at some pictures right now. So who did that? Who
what time period is that?
Yeah, so I mean it's pretty old. So that's the Puebloan period. So we're looking at 8,000 BC to 2000 AD. So that's
crazy. That is crazy.
10,000 years ago to
Wow.
1800. Yeah, long time. Long occupation series.
So when you're surveying or
don't put air quotes when you say survey.
Well, survey to her and survey to me are a little bit different, but kind of the same.
Yeah. Okay. Two different surveys could exist. You're saying survey as it diminishes the legitimacy of her survey because you hold yourself in this weird.
Her survey is just as important as my survey.
Thank
How's
you.
that?
Thank you. Your survey.
You're so funny. But when you're finding these things, and I mean, does it make your mind wonder, like how it got there, and the people that did this and this and that? Like, there's got to be a really, like, I don't know, intense connection there.
Yeah, there definitely is, and that's a big part of it for me is, I mean, the artifacts, they're amazing. A lot of the stuff that we find is super cool to look at. It's super cool to think how old this is, or, when you're excavating, you're like, wow, I'm the first person to see this since it was deposited here thousands of years ago. It's a cool feeling. But I think the part that is much deeper than that is the connection to someone, at some point had an association with this. They made this or they used this. And having that tangible connection to the past, I think, is something that's really special. It's interesting. I think starting my love of history and genealogy really taught me that what you think you know about the past is rarely right. So I would be like, oh, this is my great 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 grandfather, and then 3 months later I'm like, oh, that man is not related to us at all, and that is not what I thought it was. Or maybe it was somebody else's child. You never know. What's written in the history books is never, it's often one-sided. A glamorous version of events that somebody decided to leave written down. So finding actual pieces of history and getting to hold that and being able to let what you find tell the story without someone's narrative, I think is what's exciting to me about archaeology. Is it's let these things in their context tell the story of what happened rather than one person's words and version of events.
Sure. What's a good example of that? Like something you found that has really left an impression on you?
I think the coolest things that people ask me, I wish I had a better answer for this. I need to find something really amazing.
You can make
That
it up
people always
too
ask
if
me,
you
they're like, what's
want.
the
It's
coolest?
fine.
I know. Yeah. They're like, what's the coolest thing you've ever found? And I feel like my answer is underwhelming to most people because I don't have like a holy grail story really. But for me, the coolest thing I've ever found that had, a deep human connection was it was just a small pottery sherd. It's just a piece of broken pottery. It was a corrugated ware, and the way that they make those is so you have rolls of coil like snakes. You wrap them around in a circle, and then they obliterate the coils by rubbing them together to form the pot and make the connection. So when that pot was fired in the coils, you could see a perfect thumbprint from the person who had made it.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
yeah, so like thousands of years ago, and then a thumbprint, and just seeing that, you're like dusting it off and seeing, I'm like, is that what I think it is? And, turning it in the light, I'm like, whoa. So the first time I saw that, I was just amazed. It like gave me chills because I'm like, oh my gosh, the person who made this like literally left their stamp on the side of this. So it was really neat.
You know what the coolest thing I found? I was in Chicago and I was like digging a hole and I found this box. It looked like it had a bird in it.
You got my Matchbox car, don't you?
No, I actually have a serious question. And you so far it's been amazing, and you've told kind of like two different kind of stories. One is the un the like a wilderness that's not been explored yet, and you're the first one to look at it and find some of these things, and then almost like the complete opposite, where there's been a bunch of analysis and a lot of tech and GPR, and you find you think something's there, and you're digging to find it. What do you like? What's more rewarding for you, or what's more exciting? Is it the undiscovered path, or proving something's there that someone thinks is there?
That's a really good question. They both have merit, right? But to me, I think, at least in my experience, I prefer the walking the path that hasn't been tread approach. I like
Okay.
seeing fresh eye perspective, because at least in my personal experience, what we think we know is usually not what happened. So it's like we think that this might be here based on all of this evidence, and that can be really hard. I constantly have to remind myself not to be too invested in a theory, right? Like not to be too invested into what I think happened somewhere, because you tend to, project that and maybe translate things that you find based on that, because you naturally want to prove yourself right. I mean, I think everyone does. So that can be tricky because, an example is we did a survey in Kingman. I've done a lot of work in the Kingman area, but this one site in particular, we did the survey, we did mitigation measures, and we ended up doing the data recovery. And there's this really weird site, and it was up on a hill, and it was like this long, so it's a rock formation, and it was basically like a rock path, but that led to like this keyhole shape that was, laid out with rocks. And then there were some, really old fragmented pieces of wood that were sticking out, but it looked like most of it was buried, but we had no idea what this thing is. And so going into it, I made the mistake. I'm like, maybe it's some mining related. And so I'm like searching all these different things. Maybe it's something to do with mining. Maybe it's some sort of farming feature. And so I like go down a rabbit hole looking at all these different troughs and things that people built and all this different stuff. But then the evidence that we found, it supported none of those theories. There was prehistoric artifacts, there were historic artifacts. And in the end, we have no idea what it is. And, now my new theory is probably some kids built a tree house in the 50s or something weird. It's probably like nothing. And I have no idea. But I spent all of this time, thinking, I'm going to prepare. And because I really love research. So it's like, I was looking at all these different avenues, all these different possibilities. But, the data that we were able to get from that one in particular was very much not conclusive. And so I think that's why I'm hesitant to say, as fun as it is to be able to like, hey, this is what's here. We have GPR and we have LiDAR and we have all these cool tricks and things. But yeah, it might not help you at all, because what you actually end up digging might not be that. So it's just in my experience, that wasn't as fun.
I've always wondered if you got down like the path, like you found something and it's like a piece of green glass or something. Oh, this could have been this, and this is really old. And then like 2 weeks later, it's like, it's a Heineken bottle.
It's a Heineken bottle. Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh. It's cool.
And it sounds like that happens.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It's cool you mentioned, the newer technologies like LiDAR and GPR. Talk a little bit about that and like how that's kind of changed, archaeology. You hear these stories about airborne LiDAR in like the rainforest, and they found like these structures that they never would have known existed or whatever. So,
yeah. So that's actually a big part of LiDAR specifically. It's a big part of what led to my excavation in Ferns in Ireland. There's a major drought in Ireland in 2018, and someone used LiDAR to take a look at the area. And so what they found out there, I mean, it was very convenient that they had these big things to look for from the sky. But in Ireland, a lot of the ecclesiastical sites had concentric circles. So like the monastery would be put in the middle of a circle, and then there's another circle surrounding that circle, and so you have different things happening, different layers of activity happening. So on the furthest, the closer you are to the church, the holier thou are, basically. So like the better, higher status people are closer to the center, and it moves out from there. But it leaves behind in the landscape these giant circles that are, not natural at all. They're very much curved. And so you see these arcs. And so when they were able to get LiDAR from 2018, they found, I don't know how many, countless different concentric circles in the landscape that nobody knew were there. It led to the discovery of several different ring forts. And that's our monastic site the church was actually built on top of one of these circles. So, and that's interesting because a lot of times,
so cool.
Yeah.
What's a rain fort?
Ring forts.
Ring fort.
Ring forts. Yeah. So, like
same question, different
picture.
Word.
Yeah. So picture like, as a kid, I remember learning about castles, and I always pictured the moats in the circle. Around them.
Yeah.
So same kind of concept, but not necessarily filled with water. A lot of times it's, jagged spikes, wooden spikes surrounding it. So it's just a fortified structure that's circular in formation so that they can see from all angles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
So I kind of feel like archaeology is a lot like land surveying, and the fact that is there like a shortage of archaeologists, or are there just tons of people going into archaeology?
Yeah, there definitely is a shortage. And I feel like that's another thing that is maybe misleading I think there's a stigma around archaeology of a lot of people don't know that it's an option, one. But then in college, it's like you'll never get a job until you finish all of these different things. But it's like if I had somebody call me today and say that they didn't know anything about archaeology, but they were thinking about it as a career and they wanted to go survey, 100%, come on, come on with us. If you have any sort of, especially if you have survey experience, or you get someone willing to go.
No stealing the talent pool there, Jenna. Easy. We're having enough trouble on our own.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if you can find somebody willing to walk through the desert in Phoenix, over a summer, absolutely, come on out. So I think that there's a misconception that you have to have all of this education and all of this experience to even get your foot in the door. But there's a need, definitely, and there's a big gap in people coming out of college and pursuing this field. And I think that gap is only going to get larger because I think that the class sizes and things are getting smaller. So yeah, that is concerning, but there's definitely a big need for it and little awareness, I would say, of it as an option.
See, just like surveying, land surveying. We talk about mentorship a lot on the show, and I have to assume that a mentorship plays a big role when it comes to archaeology. Is there a mentor of yours or mentors that come to mind that you want to reference, look back on?
Yeah, so I have been extremely fortunate in my path. Working with Jacobs, we've got a really, really strong and diverse team. So one of the things about archaeology that can be a little bit daunting, I think, when you start out, is there are so many specialties. So we talked a little bit about bioarchaeology, but there's so many different specialties and different avenues within archaeology. And you have all of these different specialists for things. And so it's like you can learn a little bit about all of these things about, stone tools, flake stone tools, ground stone tools, ceramics, about, human remains, all of these different things, geoarchaeology, geology. There's a lot of different stuff involved in it, right? A lot of fields. And with Jacobs, we've got a lot of senior staff that they all specialize in something different. So, Bandelier was my first big survey, and I got to go complete that with someone who is, one of the leading experts in our region on lithic technology, in a place where there were so many examples. So just having the hands-on experience one-on-one with, someone that teaches college level courses on this subject, and they can be like, oh, that's what this is. It's so much different than seeing it in a textbook. So having a real life person that is a specialist be able to show me in the field, this is what this looks like, whatever it is. And then we've got, people that our firm, we've got ceramic analysis, we have faunal analysis, bioarchaeologists, all of these different people that specialize and have focused their research in specific categories. It's a great place to learn all of those things. So, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I'm not just with a firm that has a whole bunch of field techs and, I'm kind of thrown to the wolves. So I was really lucky. I don't think everybody's had that same experience, but I've been fortunate for sure.
Yeah. And like archaeology is one of those things, like there's only so much you can learn in a classroom. You have to be out in the field doing it. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it's got to be more rewarding out in the field too, right?
Yeah, I would think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And there's so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, Oregon State, loved it, great college, and I learned so much. But in 2 months of actually working on the job, I feel like I learned more than I ever did at college, because and it's also so different. I mean, Arizona there's so much archaeology here over a lot of time. And there's a lot to learn, and there's so many different tribes. And I mean, even the ceramics of the pottery is very different, just, from here to Tucson to Flagstaff, we're looking at completely different tribes. So they're very different processes. So just on, ceramics is more, my wheelhouse. So I'll speak to that. But there's so much to learn just about one region. You do a project in one area, and I'm having to brush up and be like, wait a minute, what was that, specific thing to look for? And there's a lot just in your one area. So when you're learning about archaeology in college and they're trying to teach, U.S. archaeology, that's a lot to take in. And there's no way to really dial that down into what you're specifically looking at. So I feel like you take all the college education, and then you actually get out on the survey and you see what's on the ground, and you're like, I have no idea what this is. And it's probably a rock. It's probably, you're so overwhelmed with all the things that it could be that you don't really get to see what to expect or know what to expect until you're actually working in the field. And that's where you learn the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you love about being an archaeologist, and what advice would you give to somebody? I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but what advice would you give to somebody who's considering it as maybe a career path?
Yeah, so I think what I love about archaeology is just, like I said, the connection to the past, that tangible connection. I think that it's really important, and I think often undervalued, protecting heritage. I think so many times people, I mean, I work for an engineering firm, so I'm sure I sometimes I feel walking into a room, they're like, oh no, the archaeologists are here, they're going to slow us down, so much red tape. And it's like, yes, that can be difficult, but there's a certain balance of, trying to support preservation, which I think is very important, because we can't just erase everything that happened before and forget our history and forget the history of the people who were here before we were here. I think that's very important. But at the same time, we also have to support progress and development to an extent too, right? So there has to be a balance. It's nice that we have the laws in place and the protections in place that trigger an archaeologist to come out, because most people wouldn't want us to, and so all of that would be gone, all of that would be lost. So I think it's important that we have those in place, because we don't know what's there, and once we destroy it, then it's gone forever, and we'll have no idea. But I would say for a person, early in their career looking at archaeology as a path, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give is to learn GIS early, because it's going to open doors for you, and that is a very valuable skill to have. And even with government shutdowns and different, things happening in the climate today, a lot of firms, they've had a, major slowdown in their work. But with GIS, I have been fully billable this entire time. I always have something to do because I have that to fall back on, and I have, the skills that I think are very helpful in my field, but they also translate to other things. So, I mean, worst case scenario, if you realize, I think a lot of people get into archaeology and then it takes field school to realize it kind of weeds people out, right? Because you have to have a balance of somebody that really loves the book learning and the research involved in it and wants to ask the anthropological questions. But you have to have that paired with somebody who can tolerate being outside and shoveling a bucket full of dirt for hours.
Yeah, I'm sure you shocked some 20-year-olds in the rainy season in Ireland on their hands and knees.
It's not for everyone. If you have a love of the outdoors, you've already passed most of the hurdle there. But I think a lot of people, those skills don't necessarily go together that often. Where somebody really loves the outdoors and also really loves reading and research, that's not always paired very well. So I think it's can be more difficult to find that, that balance, but it's very rewarding if you enjoy both of those things, I will say. But GIS just complements that. So if you have those skills and it looks like something that you want to do, learning GIS is going to make you, a commodity.
Sure. Again, a lot of similarities.
Yeah,
I mean, land surveying and archaeology. I mean, if you love history, you love being outside.
Yeah,
you love doing research.
It's oddly similar.
It really is. Yeah.
I have 3 questions before we finish. And I've been working on these as we've been going. One I wanted to circle back to, and it's timely because you just talked to, we asked you about giving some advice to young professionals getting into this business. But when we started, you mentioned that you were doing something and then you had to take a career pivot or a complete 180 and go back to school to get into a career that you wanted to get into. What advice would you give, maybe not a young person, but someone that is in a job that wants to do something different? And I would say that you had pulled that off quite successfully.
Yeah, so I think I was intimidated at first. Change can be scary. It was the circumstances kind of lining up perfectly for me. We were moving to Hawaii. I had a young child at the time that wasn't even in school yet. So it was like, how am I going to do daycare and work? And so it worked out well for me to go back to school at that time. But I was really scared before I got into it and knew what it was going to be like, because I didn't do great in school, honestly, before that. I hadn't found my passion. And so school was challenging for me. But when I started with history, before I even got into anthropology and then archaeology later on, it makes a huge difference when you go to school for something that you love, for something that you enjoy. That was the biggest difference for me. I excelled at school. I did really well. I enjoyed it because it was like, nothing like me before in school of like, oh gosh, I got to read this. I got to do this assignment. I can't get through it. If I had gone back to school for like finance or something, I would have suffered terribly. But when it's something that you enjoy, it's very rewarding. And I was so scared about the unknown and what that was going to look like for me. But it was very fulfilling and, rewarding, as I said, to be able to find that and just kind of challenge myself. I was really surprised at how easy it was and how clear all of a sudden my path was of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And that's no small thing. Finding something that you can be excited about, waking up every day and going to work and doing, the thing that pays the bills. If you can love it, I mean, absolutely go for it.
Oh, that's cool.
Love it.
Okay. Next question. Do you think it's weird that you get excited when somebody calls you about a dead body?
Yeah. Yeah. What's weirder is when we were in Hawaii, and my husband's a federal agent and he was on call on base, and there was a discovery that I made and had to call. And so then he got called in. And so he was not happy. He was like, I'm the one on call. So he had to call in. It's like, I'm like, sorry, I have an obligation here.
Right. He's like, why are you still smiling? And you're like, it's so fun.
And I was in school, so it's like, I know what this is. This is not, this is not funnel. I know exactly what this is. And he was like, great, I'm so glad that I'm, supporting your decision to go back to school and learn these things and get me called in.
Great. Yeah, right.
It is kind of weird, and it's definitely one of those things where it's like, I can't talk too much about that side of burial recoveries because it is such a sensitive topic, but the part that I think is rewarding on that I will say is it's rewarding to be able where I get excited about it. It's not, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that that person has been discovered. You know, that's not really what you want to see happen. It's their final resting place. You want them to rest in peace. So their discovery is not peaceful, you know, in its nature. But the part that I think is rewarding about that is being able to give some closure to, you know, that individual or to people associated with that individual. So maybe they're, you know, if this is someone's ancestor, being able to respectfully recover that person and give them, you know, a proper burial the way that, you know, they would have seen fit, and that the way that you would want for your own family member. So you don't just, you don't want, you know, Uncle John sticking half out of the desert by I-90, you know, that's not ideal. You want them to be someplace where you can feel they have dignity and you know, peace. So that's the part that I think is exciting, I would say, about any sort of burial recovery, is just being able to give that person final peace.
Well said.
Not ideal to be sticking out of the desert.
No, not ideal.
No.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up here, do you have anything else that you want to get out there, maybe to our listeners that we haven't talked about yet?
I can't think of anything. I guess just, I think it's important to stay curious about, you know, be open to possibilities. And if this is there, maybe not even this, but if there's something that you've been interested in, you know, for me, we talked about me changing career paths, and I'm on a completely different path than I thought that I would have been on, you know, even 10 years ago, but I feel so much more fulfilled and happy with what I do, even though I liked what I did before, but I didn't get the excitement that I get from archaeology. So like finding that spark or whatever it is that that makes you excited to get up in the mornings, I think is extremely important and maybe undervalued.
Love it.
All right. Well, we ask one question, everyone at the end. So you're no different, and you may have just stolen it a little bit, but do you have a mantra that you live by?
Yeah, I had to think of this one. I think it would be, you know, be open to possibilities and don't overthink it. You know, oftentimes the answer to whatever it is that we're asking in the field is usually like the simplest answer. It's not some elaborate scheme or some sort of ritual activity. It could just be, you know, this was the most convenient way to perform a task. And usually that's, you know, human nature is do the easy thing. So that's usually what the answer is.
I like it.
Very good. Love it.
I like it. Well, hey, Jenna, great conversation.
Yeah, look at that. An hour just rolls right by.
Just like that. That's how you know it's a good show.
That's how you know it's a good show.
Yeah, yeah. But we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and, you know, putting spotlight on archaeology. I think it's really cool.
I'm surprised we haven't done it yet. So
I know it. So, anything else?
No,
good, buddy?
No, I'm good.
Ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah. Learn some stuff. Had some fun. It was a good time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Jenna.
Thanks so much for having me.
You betcha. All right. Our good friends, the Tragically Hip.
AKA the Hip.
The Hip, indeed. Adding value, making friends. As always,
check that box.
Check those boxes. If anyone would like to be a guest on a future show, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com. Same email if you want to be a friend of the program.
Yeah, if you're interested, shoot us an email.
Huge thanks to our partners, as always, Emlid, Topodot, Altera Central, Hexagon, NLC Prep, David Evans and Associates, and of course, TK at DBLS. Couldn't do this without you. Tragically Hip. New Orleans is sinking, available everywhere. Until next time, everybody.
Yeah, what do you got?
I got place shapes people.
Okay.
That's great. Respect history. Stay curious. Go to school for something that you love. Find your spark. Same thing there a little bit. And finally, be open to the possibility, but don't overthink it.
I love that.
That is really, really good. Prophetic, some might say.
I would say too.
Sure.
Yes.
As always, most importantly, be safe and healthy, everybody. Rip Gort Downey.